This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, we do encourage you at all times to like and share these shows on social media and with all your friends and neighbors, because it's time for the African American Scene, presented by independent insurance agent Rudy Howard, and he also hosts the show. Good evening, Rudy.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. I'm always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. Well, we're on the last leg of our journey for Black History Month for 2023. And I'm going to take you to Red Summer. And I picked Red Summer because I would venture to guess most of you out there don't know anything about Red Summer. And also because it's important for you to understand the long-lasting impact of some of the trials and tribulations that African Americans have had to go through and how it has extended into today. And the most conservatives at this point feel that those things from the past are unimportant. And I think that I can convince you that they're a lot more important than they tell you they are. First, let me tell you your trivia question for tonight. This is the last night, so I'm going to give you multiple opportunities. I'll give you a question. If you answer it, then I will give you another one. If you answer it, then I'll give you another one. Each one, a person can win a prize. And I want to tell you that I have a friend of mine. Oh, and let me say this to you. The YMCA is having their Easter House raffle. And if you're interested in a ticket, it's $20. And the house is valued at $400,000. And if you are lucky enough to be a winner, you can get $250,000 in cash. Pretty good deal. And the winner will be drawn on April 6th. If you're interested in a ticket, let me know. And we will try to make arrangements for you to buy a ticket. The other thing, and Miles, I've tried to call you, but the number we have was not working. So if you're listening tonight, Miles, please call me so I can get your address and I will send you your prize. Okay? Now, tonight's trivia question, number one: who was Robert Smalls? Who was Robert Smalls? Tell me who he was and why he's important, and what year he was born. Okay? Robert Smalls. Okay. The YMCA, in association with the Women in Philanthropy, is having their first annual health summit. And it's going to be on April 1st, 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Willoughby Golf Club. That is April 1st, 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Willoughby Golf Club, 3001 Southeast Doubleton Drive, Stuart, Florida. That's the Willoughby Golf Club. Okay. I want to give you a reference note for yourself to some of the information I'm going to present to you. You can find information about the Red Summer at the History Channel page. And one of the reasons why I'm encouraging you to go out there and look for that information is they provide pictures. You can actually see pictures of people ransacking people's houses during this massacre period. And the number for that prize is 340-1590. 340-1590. And if you want to call in, please feel free to call in as I talk about the Red Summer. The Red Summer is one of those pieces of history that most do not know anything about. It was a summer in which African Americans were terrorized across the United States. There was roughly 26 cities involved in the Red Summer. DC, Knoxville, Longview, Texas, Elaine, Arkansas, Nebraska, and Chicago. Now, this came about because during that summer, many of the veterans came back from World War I, and some had been replaced by African Americans who had moved north in the Great Migration. You know, the Great Migration was a bunch of former slaves that moved north because they grew weary of the poor treatment they received and the disparate opportunities that was available to them in the South. So they moved north in search of more opportunity. What marks a difference in the Red Summer is there was a change in attitude by African Americans who had served in World War I. Now, that change is because they saw war and they fought for the freedom of this country. And when they came back, they basically took the position, no, I'm not going to be subservient as I have in the past because I happen to be Black. If I was willing to fight and die for my country, then I expect to be treated as an equal. Now, you know, you've heard me talk about that issue more times than I can count about the fact that African Americans have always demonstrated a love for this country because they have been willing to put their life on the line. And I think that's probably the greatest measure of your commitment to a country when you're willing to fight and die for it. So these soldiers come back, and due to the Great Migration, some of their jobs are no longer available to them because they've been taken by former slaves who have come north. So this created some tension. And some people, for whatever reason, thought that many of the Blacks had sided with the Bolsheviks in the Russian conflict. So those two things kind of spurred greater tensions between the African American community and the white community. Unfortunately, at the same time, we had the increase in lynchings. So in 1919, there was an increase in the lynchings of Black folks. And we have a call. We have a caller on line one, Winnie.
How you doing? Good, friend. Yeah, I received your Easter House ticket yesterday, and I appreciate it. Thank you for it.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, that's what I called to say. I'm
Well,
let the rest of your program. You say Red Summer?
Red Summer. Yes, there's a book called Red Summer. I'll leave it. Hold on. I'll tell you guys who the author is, because I read it some time ago, and then I have it on audio book. So let me get to that.
19 or
Yeah. Okay. Huh?
You say 1919.
1919. Yes, ma'am. That's the Red Summer. So listen.
Okay, I'm listening to the rest of the program.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. I will try to find the author for you before we get off the air during the break. But yes, there's a book called Red Summer, and it gives details of some of the events. I'm going to give you some details now, but what I'm trying to do now is just giving you an idea of the atmosphere that existed during this 1919 period. I'm going to give you another trivia question just to help move this along here, because I want to give out some of these prizes. Tell me what year was Brown versus the Board of Education decision made? What year was Brown versus the Board of Education made? You can answer that question. Cliff will take your name and address, and I will send you your prize. Okay. Much of what created the problems and initiated the massacres were rumors. That had long been a driving force in how some of these things start. There's an allegation that somebody was not respectful to a white person, or may have made a pass at a white woman, which I find extraordinarily funny in 2023. There's so many Black guys with white women and white women with Black women. It almost seems comical that we ever had a period where this was taboo and would create a damn riot. Can you imagine? A riot is created because they did not like the idea of a Black man being with a white woman. Wow. That just it seems so far-fetched to me, and so bizarre, as many of you I know think that it's bizarre, but that's the real world in 1919. That was the real world. And that was only, let's see, my dad was born in 27, so that was not far from where my dad was born. And as my father was raised up, that was still considered taboo. But back at this time, that was considered a real taboo. And the catalyst for the DC riot, a white woman incited it by saying that someone had say something improper to her. And we have Jay on line 1. Yes, sir.
Oh, good afternoon. How you doing, Rudy?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to answer your question first. Brown v. Board, 1950, between 1955 and 1954.
Well, Jay, which one is it?
I'll say 55. I'm probably wrong, but I know it's right in that area.
Okay.
Well, when I was a youngster.
I'm gonna be generous tonight, and it is, I believe, 54. But you're close enough. We're going to give before you hang up, give Cliff your address, and I will send you your prize.
Okay. I just want to make a comment. I'm not going to hang it because I know you want to tell, give the history of this. But while you're talking about the Red Summer, the first thing that came to my mind was 1909 was the creation of the NAACP, and it was created because of anti-lynching laws.
Absolutely.
Congress wouldn't pass like today. You would think in 2023 that the Congress would be much more progressive and more educated and know what the history of this country was, not like DeSantis, and know that anti-lynching laws is something that would be an automatic thing.
Yeah, I do believe, Jay, they passed it last year. After all of this time, I think they finally passed the anti-lynching law last year.
Yeah.
It
took a struggle, but they will. I guess they got embarrassed about it. But it was just so sad watching these old white men sitting around trying to figure out why shouldn't they pass it?
Yes.
It was ridiculous. And what's going on now? I'll just make one more statement and I'll go. McConnell, he just gave Tucker Carlson the tape of the outlay of the Capitol building, where all the hidden tunnels are and everything, where the senators had to go to to get away from the rioters. He will have that. Tucker Carlson, of all people, will have all of that information, and will be able to. And he's the one that hangs out with the president of Hungary, and he loves Putin. So you know who's going to get a copy of it.
Well, I sure hope.
I just want to bring that up so people will know who's what's going on here in the state of Florida and what's going on around this country. And we need to stand up, and people need to get out and be active and vote, and not sit back and say, "Woe is me."
Yeah. Well, let me just correct you.
I appreciate you. Just let me talk.
That's okay. Let me correct you on one thing. It was McCarthy. It wasn't McConnell.
Yeah, I meant to say McCarthy. I was trying to get his name together.
Okay, all right, that's okay.
Sorry about
that. But yeah, it was McCarthy. Thank you for calling. But listen, I know some of you love Tucker Carlson. I know some of you really love Tucker Carlson, but I will tell you, there is a finding by a judge, I think it's a federal court judge, where they took his testimony and he asserted that he did not give news. And in the judge's summation, the judge said it should not be considered that Tucker Carlson is providing you with news. Wow. Wow. And here's my beef with McCarthy. If he wants to give out that information, which from everything that I've read so far, he was legally entitled to do, why didn't he give it to all the news outlets? Because Hannity and Carlson are notorious cherry pickers for information that they provide to their listeners. they very rarely, in my opinion, give the complete fact of a situation that they're reporting on. They typically report the side that they feel is most favorable to the conservative republic. Further on, after the DC riot, there was a bloody riot in Norfolk, Virginia. That riot occurred when African Americans were celebrating the return home of the African American servicemen. So they got into a bloody fight with the white people as they were trying to celebrate the return of the African American service people. I'm going to give you another trivia question since we got that one out of the way. This one's just too easy, but who was the first Black elected to the Supreme Court? And if you call up and if you get that one right, I will give you a prize. So the phone should start lighting up because I know a whole bunch of you know that. So now the Norfolk situation got so out of hand that Woodrow Wilson had to intervene. And Woodrow Wilson determined that in the DC riot and in the Norfolk riot, that white people were responsible. Now here's what I want you to understand about what happens in these incidents. Not only were they killing and lynching people, they were taking people's property. They were invading their homes and stripping them of their belongings and ransacking the house, and in some cases, burning the residence. 1919, that's not that far. So what do you think? And here's for my conservative friends, I want you to feel this. What do you think that did for the accumulation of wealth for those people who had been successful? And they all of a sudden now were being burned out of their house, or their house was being ransacked. What do you think that did to the economics of that family? How long do you think the damage from that lasts going forward? 2 generations, 3 generations, 4 generations? Now, I already took you on a trip to show you how difficult it was to recover after freedom from slavery. So in these towns where people had successfully transitioned, owned property, and built a life, part of the American dream, it was ripped apart from them. So now, after having survived the slave freedom, now they have to start all over again. Can you imagine? Now, I'm just going to see if you can try to imagine this. Can you imagine the psychological trauma associated with those folks that had to go through this trial after already having survived the trial of slavery's freedom? Think about it. Try to put yourself in their place. Try and feel it. That's why I've taken you on this journey. I want you to feel it. I want you to try as best you can, instead of criticizing the current situation, to feel what it must have felt like back then. And I'm asking you to feel what it must have felt like to have completely got yourself afoot, home, business, job. Now it's taken from you again. Do you think, and now everybody has a different level of tolerance. What do you think the psychological trauma was to those people that had to experience that? We're going to take a little break. Don't you touch that dial. Boy, I gave you a patty cake question, and I haven't even got a call on that yet. But we're going to take a break. Don't touch that dial, and we'll be right back with the African American scene.
Hi, this is Rudy Howard, your independent insurance agent. I now specialize in Medicare, health insurance, and small group insurance. That number is 475-8856. Same great service, more flexible hours. Just give me a call, 475-8856.
Now, there are just two. The IRSC Pioneers travel to Tampa to take on Hillsborough Monday at 5:30 and 7:30. The men end the regular season Saturday, the 25th, against the SCF Manatees to visit 4 p.m. Detroit visits the Magic Thursday at 7 and Indy on Saturday after IRSC on WPSL. The Heat visit Milwaukee on Friday on WSTU. IRSC Magic and the Heat are brought to you by St. Lucie Battery and Tire, Indian River State College's Athletic Department, Nice Air, Hoskins Turkle, Lloyd & Lloyd, St. Lucie Draft House, Seacoast Air Conditioning, Stipples of Stewart, Florida Blue, and Max Stuckey, Elder Law and Stewart.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
And now back to the African American scene with the one and only Rudy Howard.
Yes, I found a book. I'm trying to get it to give me the author for Red Summer. So if you want to read that book. And it's a good book to read, just to gain knowledge. I'll try to pull that author up before we get off the air here. Okay, so I hope you've been able to travel back there. Then we've had the riot in DC, the riot in Chicago. I'm sorry, the riot in DC and the riot in Norfolk, Virginia. And now we have the riot in Chicago. Now, this one is really extraordinarily stupid, beyond reason. And this is another one where you're going to find is just absolutely unbelievable that people felt like that back in 1919. In 1919, it was alleged that a Black teenager allegedly drifted beyond the section of the beach that was for Blacks and went into the white area. Now think about that. They were at the damn beach. And he got in trouble because he was in a beach where he drifted into an area that was supposed to be for whites only. Now, what were they going to catch? Were they going to catch Blackness? Did they think he had cooties or something that he was going to transfer to them or whatever? But this young man moved into an area of the beach. So now he's in the water, for God's sake. I just find this stuff so, it just hurts me to my bone to talk about stuff like this because it's just so nonsensical. In a damn beach in the water. What was my blackness going to rub off on you from through the water? Wow, it's crazy. But in any event, someone stoned him at the beach, and the stoning resulted in him drowning. And there was no handling of the person who eyewitnesses said initiated the event. Police did not prosecute him. So as a result of this riot, there was 38 fatalities, 23 black and 15 white. And here's the other part. 1,000 black families were made homeless because a young black man at a beach drifted into the water side that was supposedly reserved for whites. Can you believe that? Can you? I don't know. And if you can't answer who the first Supreme Court justice is, shame on you. That was a real cupcake question. But that is what happened. Now, one of the reasons why I gave you those references in the beginning of the show, if you look those up, you'll see pictures. They have pictures of white kids terrorizing and rampaging a house where the riot was taking place. So please do that. But I am interested in your comments. If you have any comments about what I've had to say, not talking about the prize, but if you just want to comment on my information about Red Summer, please call. I'd welcome your call because I hope that you will find that as disheartening as I do. Again, the phone number is 340-1590, 340-1590. Now, in an additional incident in Elaine, Arkansas, a riot started because there was a shootout with the police. And the police officer got shot. And as a result of that, there was another massive riot in which houses were burned and people were injured and killed. I'm not sure of how the shootout started, but that was the initiating event. During this period of time, the Ku Klux Klan was revived. So we have the Klan reemerging in 1919. And listen, the author of the book and the authors of the two articles have made it very clear what the overwhelming reason was for these massacres and riots. They wanted Black people to stay in their place. These men who had been overseas, and I don't know if any of you have read about the World War I and II, about how the Black GIs were treated. They were treated pretty well over there. And in fact, in I believe it was World War I, where they did not particularly care for the Black troops, the black troops were given to the French, and they received several medals and honors for the bravery in fighting the war. And that was very disturbing to many of the members of the military who were from here, who felt that it would have a lasting effect. And it did. It did have a lasting effect, because they're over there fighting for us over here, and they're being treated with dignity and respect. Now they come back home and they want black men to go back into a subservient role. Those men who had experienced that were not going to do it. They just were not going to do it. And after serving in armed services, this spurred them to not be compliant anymore. So the white public was used to black folks cowering and being intimidated by white folks. And all of a sudden, these guys come back and say, no, I'm not going to cower anymore. And if you shoot me, I'm going to shoot you back. If you're going to attack my homes, I'm going to try to defend them with everything I got. That was new. That was not something that had been done in the past. And this was coming at a great surprise to many white folks, that their compliant, subservient black folks were now ready to protect and defend themselves. So I want you to understand that that is what happened. And so in this summer, all across this nation, there was terror, riots, massacres, and uprooting black communities that had been successful. It takes us right into where we were with Tulsa, and Tulsa's 1921. The Tulsa race riot, which was an abomination. Although in some of my reading, they say the Elaine, Arkansas riot was just about as bad as the Tulsa riot, and I find that hard to believe. But in any event, the Tulsa riot now is one that is widely recognized and acknowledged as history. These other riots that I've talked about, I'll bet you none of you have ever even heard of them. And there's some other ones out there. There was a riot in Louisiana, very similar circumstances about rumors. And I would just tell you is knowing that many of those incidents started based on rumors, I have a profound dislike, borderline hate of conspiracy theories. I think they're dangerous. I think they hurt our country, and many of them are completely unfounded. And their origin starts here. It starts here, where someone can say, a white woman could say that a black man whistled at me, and that would cause a riot. Can you imagine that? And here's the irony of this. And some of you are not going to like me saying this, but they were upset that a black man would whistle at a white woman, yet the master went down to the shack anytime he felt like it and partake of sexual intercourse with a slave woman. And we got Winnie on line one. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you're right about all that. You're right. What about Rosewood?
Yes. Rosewood's another one. Yes. And here's the thing that I think is important. One of the criticisms I often hear from conservatives is that Black people don't want to do it on their own. And these are all communities where Black people were successful and they had created a good community and a thriving economy, and it was destroyed.
It was destroyed. That was bad.
Yeah.
So what is Rosewood now? Just nothing? And nobody there?
Well, in 1994, the Florida legislation awarded $1.5 million to be split among the 11 remaining heirs of Rosewood. So there was some compensation given there. So that is, you know, a positive outcome on that particular thing. So
I heard about that's tough. Anyway, there go Marshall. That's one of your questions. There go Marshall. It's like Supreme Court. There goes Marshall.
Yes, you're right.
That's one of your answers.
Yes, that is the answer.
Take care, but that's you know, I keep continuing listening at your program. Bye bye.
Okay. That was the answer. I don't know. I have to think about whether or not we can send Wendy another prize. I'll think about that though. But just think about. I've taken you on this journey, and we're on the last leg of the journey for this year, and I've taken you up to the Red Summer, and some of the events that occurred. And she talked about Rosewood, and then there's also Wilmington. In Wilmington, where some of the Black people had obtained governmental seats and authority, the white folks said nope and burned them out too. So it is a continuing thing that happened back then. So now, fast forward to 2023, which is what my conservative friends always want me to talk about. They don't want me to talk about the past. They want me to talk about what it's like today. Today, I would tell you now, okay, another very important point. For all of those deaths and lynchings and murders and burnings, just like in Tulsa and in Wilmington and Rosewood, there was no justice. Nobody was indicted. Nobody went to jail. Nobody was convicted. Can you imagine? Nobody? It's well documented that damage in Tulsa, those people did not even receive any compensation for their property damage. So when we talk about the possibility of retribution from the past. It's not just back to slavery. It's back to the Bed Summer. It's back to Tulsa. I think there's a possibility, as with Rosewood, there may be something that will be done in order to compensate those people. But in 2023, many of those things that spurred riots are comical to us today, but they were real. And they caused real damage, and they caused real economic damage to folks. So when folks talk about retribution, immediately they go back and say, well, I don't even know if anybody here was a slave at that time. Well, my God, I'll bet you there's a lot of people here that in 1919, 1921, and thereabouts, who have ancestors here who were deprived of their wealth. And I've talked about this before. I don't want to be a broken record, but wealth building in this country is largely based on accumulation of wealth through home ownership. So if they burned down their house, they took away that wealth would directly benefit some of their children, and it's now gone. I don't know. Are they entitled to anything? Is there anybody out there brave enough to say yes or no? I don't care if you go either way. I would just like to hear you say, do you think those people who experienced that terror in 1919 should be entitled to anything, especially since, for the most part, the government didn't protect them? And in some cases, police officers participated with the rioters in causing harm to their Black citizens. 340-1590. I welcome you. I challenge you to tell me, do you think there is any need or any reason for compensation for those that lost so much during that time? Just wondering. I would just love to hear what you have to say. I will tell you that I'll step into a different topic for a moment. A good friend of mine wrote a book. I'll show it to you. It's called Leaving Charleston Harbor, The Legend of Robert Smalls. And it's a children's book written by Donald N. Watson. And I got copies for my grandkids. I got copies for my grandkids. So if you would be interested, let me know. And I will see about getting you a copy. I hope to have Donald Watson on my show next week. He's retired from the Willie Gary firm. He was one of the original guys with Willie Gary as a lawyer in his operation for many, many years, and he's now retired from law. But very, very bright guy. And I think you're going to enjoy having a conversation with him. And once again, this week, you guys are really, really quiet. I almost get the feeling somebody out there has told you not to call me anymore. So if that's the case, so be it. But any event, again, I hope you have enjoyed the journey that I've taken you on. And I hope that I've given you some things to think about. Because if you think about what African Americans have had to overcome to be up here in 2023, I can only tell you, for me, I could not be more proud of who I am, because I think so highly of those people that came before me and had to endure such hardships in order for me to allow to be here in 2023 talking to you on the radio and being able to talk to you about issues pertaining to Black people, which is something I am sure in 1919 or 1920 or 1950 you could not have done. But I am so proud, and I would not want to be anything else, even though I certainly have had my trials and tribulations. I am proud. And I hope that I have enlightened you, especially on the summer. And I gave you some areas where you can look up additional information, and I hope you'll take the time to do that, because it's worthwhile, especially when you see some of the pictures that show you how houses were burned down and people's houses were ransacked. Sad, but it's just a true fact of history. But we're going to be on a different tip starting next week. We have completed Black History Month. And I would like to thank you so much for tuning into the African American scene. God bless and be safe. And I will see you next week right here with the African American scene.
Rudy Howard's African Americans aired every Wednesday night in the 6 p.m. hour on WPSL 1590 with archives on YouTube. You could binge watch it. We have definitely many hundreds of episodes of this show on YouTube. And you can hear some of the callers and how they've acted and how some of them are no longer allowed to call. But if you would like to really participate in some debate, I dare you to call this show. All right? So we'll catch you next week. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast, where the time is 7 o'clock.